The purpose of this video, assuming that it works, is to aid all student leaders, officers, and commissioners or staff members in filling out the request for check, purchase order, or transfer form. Today's video is going to be very long because there's a total of 4 different ways to fill out this form. 2 ways if you want to make a check request, 1 way to request a purchase order, and 1 way to request account transfers. As always, there's a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. The first thing I'm going to be discussing in this video is check requests. And this process is fairly complicated because there are 2 types of checks you can request based on your situation. The first is a school account check, which is where you withdraw money from your organization's school account in the form of a check to use for purchases or donations. The second is a reimbursement check, which is when you use your own money to pay for purchases and then pay yourself back later on with the revenue you made from your fundraiser or event with a check that is written out to you or your parent. An important note is that every school organization, whether it's a group or club, automatically gets a school account, so you don't need to worry about setting it up. Just make sure you get your school account number if you haven't already. However, your school account is not like a traditional bank account, because although you can always deposit money via the deposit form, you can never withdraw cash from your school account. You can only use your money in the form of a check. And if you ever want to check your organization's school account balance, you can always ask the controller in their office or via email. If you don't personally know which option would be better for you, I made a list which details the pros and cons between the 2 payment methods. I'll go over the differences briefly, but you can pause the video and read it for yourself if you want more information. For school account check, remember you're using the money that's already in your organization's school account for your purchase. The main benefit is that you and your officers don't need to pay out of pocket or use your own money. However, this method also requires you to already have money in your school account for you to withdraw. You also need to fill out the form a week before your event, so you can get the check before your event and use it to make the purchases you need. Additionally, you also need to make sure the business you're buying from prints mock receipts, since you're going to need to staple them to your requests, and the business also needs to be able to take checks as a form of payment. In terms of reimbursements, this is where you and your officers are paying out of pocket and then paying yourself back later on with the revenue that's in your school account. The main benefit is that any club can use this payment method even if they are a newer club without money in their school account. Reimbursements can also be made anytime after your fundraiser or event, as long as you have the real receipt to attach to your form. However, this method requires you to pay out of pocket first, and if your organization doesn't have any money, you must choose this option. Here's a step-by-step list that I made for the school account check method. The basic main steps are to have your cooperating business print mock receipts and ask if they take checks, fill out the form, staple your mock receipt, and turn it into the controller. Then you wait for the controller to deliver your check, use it for your purchase, and please make sure to turn in the real receipt to the controller afterwards for verification. Here's an example of how you should fill out the form if you're using the school account check method. Put the account name, account number, date of request, and check off the box that says check request. Make the check payable to the company or vendor you're purchasing from, since this check is how you're paying them. For mailing, you can check one of these boxes, but the option that the controller recommends at this moment is write delivered to student and write your name in parentheses, since this will get your check to you in the quickest way possible. Write down a description of what you plan on ordering, including the quantity, item, unit price, and total price, and then subtotal, tax, shipping and handling, if applicable, and total. Make sure these details match your mock receipt as well, since you're going to be stapling your mock receipt to this form. Lastly, get a signature from your advisor, and once you receive your check and use it for your purchase, give the real receipt to the controller for verification. For reimbursements, the steps are fairly more straightforward. Use your money for your purchase and keep the real receipt. After your event, the revenue will get transferred into your school account, and then you can fill out this form with the real receipt attached and turn it into the controller. Afterwards, you'll receive your check, cash it out, and distribute the money if necessary. Here's how you should fill out the form if you want a reimbursement. Write the name of the account number, and date. Check off the box that says check request, and then for this part where you're making the check payable to someone, you can choose 2 people. If you don't have a bank account, then make the check payable to your parent or guardian, since you're going to need a bank account to cash in this type of check. To make the check payable to your parent, write your parent's name and then the word parent in parentheses. Then you're going to write your name and the word student in parentheses. This helps the controller have an easier time determining who the parent or guardian belongs to. For example, I'm currently the only Richard Steele on campus, but if my guardian's name is Ricky Bobby, then there might be multiple students who have a guardian whose name is Ricky Bobby, so writing your name just creates less confusion. However, if you do have a bank account, and you want the check written out to you for you to cash in, write your name and the word student in parentheses. For mailing instructions, you can choose these options, but you can also just write deliver check to student and the controller can deliver it to you. Write down the description of your order, including quantity, item, info, unit price, and total price, along with subtotal, tax, shipping and handling if applicable, and your total. Make sure these details match up with your receipt and staple your receipt to the form. Lastly, get a signature from your advisor and turn in the form to the controller. The second thing I'm going to be discussing today is purchase order requests, which are documents that a buyer issues to a seller to determine an agreed price and quantity for a product or service. For this process, you need to contact your cooperating company or vendor for a quote, which is a fixed detailed price for a product or service. You also need to make sure the vendor consents to accepting purchase orders, since they won't be paid until after they issue an invoice and the merchandise is received. You're going to then fill out the purchase order request, staple the quote to the form, and turn it into the controller. Once you receive the merchandise, make sure the controller also receives the invoice so the company can receive their payment. Here's how you should fill out the form if you're requesting a purchase order. Write down the name of the account number, and date. Check off the box that says purchase order and write down the vendor's fax number at this blank space. And then write down the company's name and their address. Because the purchase order and payment is being sent to the company, check off mail to vendor, and then write down a description of what you're planning to order. Make sure to be specific by indicating the quantity, item, additional info if applicable, such as a delivery date, unit price, total price, and the information down here. Lastly, get a signature from your advisor, staple the quote to the form, and turn it into the controller. Afterwards, receive your merchandise and make sure the controller gets an invoice either from you or the company. The last thing I'll be talking about today are ASB account transfers, which is exactly what it sounds like. This process is for when a school organization wants to transfer money from their account to another school organization's account. This can either be because two organizations earned money together at an event, but all the revenue went into a single school account and now they're trying to split the earnings, or because an organization is planning on closing its doors. Even if a club or organization isn't rechartered the next school year, the school account is still frozen and can be reactivated. After 2 to 3 years, however, the school account is terminated and all the money in that account is sent into the main ASB account. Rather than having an organization's money go into the general ASB account, it may be wiser to give the money to a club that could really use it if you know that your club isn't going to be rechartered the following year. In terms of steps for this process, determine the amount of money your group wants to transfer to the other organization, whether it's $10 or your entire balance, and then complete this form and turn it into the controller. This is an example of how you could complete this form for an account transfer. First, you're going to write the name of your account number, and date. Check off the box that says transfer between ASB accounts and write down the giving organization's account number and then the receiving organization's account number. You don't need to fill out this part, but for the description, write 1 in the quantity box since you're doing one transfer. Write down the amount of the transfer and the accounts involved if you like, and then write down the transfer amount as the unit price, total price, subtotal, and total. Lastly, get a signature from your advisor and turn in the form to the controller. That was a lot of info we just went over, but I hope this video answered the questions you may have had about these processes. If you're watching this part of the video, it likely means that you truly care about the Franklin community and creating something that truly makes our campus a better place. Making these videos haven't been easy, but I sincerely appreciate you sticking through regardless and putting in the work to educate yourself to make a difference. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors.